Good evening. We are now at week 6 of Social Work 541. And let us go through the focus for this week, which is on community practice, advocacy, and technology. So let's go to the introduction. The overview for this week is that we are examining the skills necessary for effective community work associated with the range of advocacy techniques and the use of technology. The learning objectives are as follows: to describe the theory of collective efficacy, to describe techniques of community advocacy, and to apply technological skills for community practice, including the use of social media. So let's look at the learning activities for this week, starting with the learning resources. There is a group of slides that we will go over shortly. There are a number of readings that cover collective efficacy, community advocacy, and using social media for advocacy. And there are a number of supplemental readings, including from the University of Canvas, the Community Toolbox, Chapters 7, 10, 11, and 35. The discussion for this week is as follows. For your initial post, you are going to look at social media. Social media is increasingly a critical tool for contemporary advocacy work. After completing the readings for this week, especially the readings on using social media for advocacy, complete all of the following components for your initial post. First, describe an advocacy or community social problem situation you have been a part of that involves social media, or if you have not been involved with one you have heard about or read about. Then describe the strengths of using social media in this example, and conversely, could social media have been used more effectively and how so? You're responding to one of your classmates, and in your response discuss the similarities and differences you see between your experience and that of your classmate. How was social media used differently? How could social media have been used more effectively? Again, your initial post is due Thursday and your follow-up is due Sunday. For week 6, there is another written assignment that you will work on in your dyads and the one group that is in a triad, and that is around community needs and services plan. So for part 2 of the community needs and services assessment, you and your dyad triad are to develop a logical plan to deal with the community's problems. The plan must include the following components using headings for each component. First, the community summary. Provide a brief, at least one half-page summary of the community and the problem you are targeting. This is, in essence, an abstract. Now you're going to do a literature review. Provide a review of the literature with no fewer than 10 references. In the literature review, discuss interventions used in other communities to deal with the same or similar problems. Of the 10 references, you may use up to 3 from class readings, so you and your partner will need to find at least 7 new references. The references you locate must be from reputable sources. That generally means that since internet resources have not necessarily been vetted, you are looking at articles from journal articles or books that are written on the topic. You also are going to provide a community intervention plan. That plan you will provide a description of your plan to address the problem. This should include the theoretical model that is guiding your plan, drawing on the course material presented in weeks 3, 4, and 6, and a description of at least 5 specific advocacy organizing activities that actually comprise the intervention. At least 2 of these 5 activities should be targeted at the media, local or state politicians, or other power interests in the community. This includes a plan to write a press release, and 2, a letter to the editor of a local paper, or brief to a politician or other power interest. Specifically, identify how social workers may participate in these activities, and be sure to address the following. How does your understanding of social, economic, and environmental justice help you advocate for clients in this activity? And how will these activities advance social, economic, and environmental justice for clients? This paper must be jointly written by all dyad triad members and be between 5 to 7 double-spaced pages long, not including a title and reference page, and 1 submission for each group is expected. This assignment is due Sunday at the end of week 6, and again, only 1 member of your group will need to submit. So if you have any questions about this, please let me know as quickly as possible. Now let's go back over the slides for this week. So going over the slides for this week, we've already discussed that this is around advocacy and technology in community practice. We've talked about the overview and the objectives for the week. So let's define this concept of collective advocacy. Collective efficacy, not advocacy, collective efficacy. So while the goals of community practice efforts vary, one of the commonly identified purposes is to strengthen a community's ability to work on its own problems with or without external support, such as a social worker or an organization. One way of framing this that has become more and more important in recent years is through what is called collective efficacy, which is defined as a form of social organization that combines social cohesion and shared expectations for social control. In other words, creating organizational capacity. So how do we build this collective efficacy? There are many strategies which include building and supporting social networks, such as community or neighborhood organizations, positive reinforcement for achievements, building collaborative trust among participants, maximizing opportunities for participation by participants, eliminating barriers to trust. The relationship of collective efficacy to advocacy. Advocacy can be both either externally provided and or directed by participants themselves. Ultimately, we want the communities we work with to be better advocates for themselves. We want to enhance their collective efficacy. What is advocacy? Formally, it is the act of arguing a case on behalf of others, but it also implies empowerment, which is the ability to self-advocate. For community practice, this means the articulation of a position to effective change policy legislation, effective change organizational practices, influence administrators, influence judicial actions, and bring attention to the media about a problem of concern. So why advocate? Agitators are a set of interfering, meddling people who come down to some perfectly contented class of the community and sow seeds of discontent among them. That is the reason why agitators are so absolutely necessary. Without them in our incomplete state, there would be no advance towards civilization. And this is a quote by Oscar Wilde. Why do we advocate? Why do we advocate? This requires a variety of skills. On one level, it may be considered a generalist process because we define the problem, find an answer, identify the target, create a plan including resources, implement, and evaluate. But there are also a number of directed skills, and they include writing letters to policymakers, writing legislative briefs, fact sheets, in-person contacts, testifying at hearings, background research on legislators. Some additional skills for legislative advocacy include learning to work with legislative staff, building relationships with supporters, developing lobbying strategies, learning legislative process rules and customs, building supports, and developing collaboratives. And all of this sounds very technical and perhaps a little scary, but once you do it once to go and meet with your elected officials, you realize that they are your elected officials, that they were elected to serve the community, two, that they are looking for information so that they can make better decisions because they do not know all things, and three, especially the staff of many of your legislative representatives are very eager to meet with people and to get their information, and you could be considered someone that they rely upon for expertise. All these skills require communication and strategies, and specifically effective communication skills and strategies. Learning to effectively articulate and push for a decision is essential. It requires knowing your audience. What is important to them? What are their concerns, interests, past experiences? And to identify barriers to effective communication, which could be cultural, which could be social economic, and could be behavioral. In addition, identifying the medium that is most effective. Not all message approaches work all the time. Some people do not read. Some people do not watch TV. Some do not use computers, and believe it or not everyone is connected to Facebook. In general, word of mouth is the best way to spread a message. People are more likely to trust messages from people they know. This can be slow, but also sometimes quite fast. The key is influencing the right people who are well connected and respected. But increasingly, technology is the medium of choice. Digital advocacy allows messages to be spread widely and quickly through social media. So we have Facebook and Twitter and blogs and emails. It can be very low cost, and it provides opportunity for near instant communication and feedback. And this slide says go back to Community Toolbox 33 for extensive consideration of tools. There are a number of additional resources listed in the slide. So with that, if you have any questions about the content for week 6, let me know as quickly as possible. I look forward to reading your group assignments for this week. And again, if you have any questions, let me know. And I hope you have a wonderful week. If there are assignments outstanding, this is the time to get them in because we're now at week 6, which means we have one more week before the end of the class. Thank you and have a wonderful week.